So I want to talk to you about plot and the different ways that we structure a plot in our short stories. And the first one we're going to look at is genre. Genre refers to specific types of stories. When a story can be stuffed into a category like horror or romance or historical fiction, those tend to be genre stories. And a genre story is a very linear plot arch. You have the beginning where everything is normal, you've got characters, and slowly something is building and building, there's tension being developed, then there's something really amazing that happens, oh my goodness, and finally we come to the end where the plot line is resolved. So let's look at that structure in terms of genre again. So first you've got your characters, and your characters are in a nice little setting where everything seems normal, everybody's happy, there's something moving toward a direction of joy, or so it seems, and then eventually you have some tension building. Things are starting to get a little bit stressful. As we move closer to the end of the story, you're actually gripping the pages. You're wondering what's going to happen next. And then ultimately, dun dun dun, the inevitable happens, and you reach the end of the story, and what you expected to happen happened, or there was some kind of surprise ending that shocked you. Either way, the trajectory of this storyline is linear. That means that it begins at the opposite place of where it ends. So here you have joy, and here you have death. You can also work this in reverse. You start with the death, and then you move toward the joy, which is similar to the plot of the movie American Beauty. So when you're plotting a genre story, you can see how this is fairly simple. You start at one place and you just keep building toward the opposite outcome. And this section here where you're developing tension, this is developed by using a strategy of slowing things down, and you do that by creating sensory details and then slapping them in the face with something really crazy and dramatic. So sensory details, you are describing things slowly and in great detail. You have really good descriptions going on, and then blammo, something really dramatic happens right at the end or near the end of the story. And resolution does not always mean happy ending. Resolution just means we've reached the place where the story comfortably ends. Now let's look at literary plot lines. Now, literary plot lines, unlike genre plot lines, literary plot lines are driven by character and character choices. So you really have to understand your character's unique psychology. You have to know your character better than you know yourself. And that's actually one of the reasons I encourage you not to use yourself as a character, because you know yourself so well and so differently than what your readers would understand. They will struggle to actually see who you are because you'll leave out some of those important details. So a literary plot moves through character psychology. Now let's just review. The genre plot is, of course, one perfect arch. And what propels a genre plot is action. So you have these individual actions where somebody gets hit by a car, and that person then has to keep running away from the mobsters. And because the mobsters are chasing them, that person has to keep running away until they find a safe house. And then ultimately, the mobsters confront them, and you either have life or death. So this is a steady trajectory, the genre plot line, and it's done using action. Actions are what move the plot forward. What's different about a literary plot line is that you have a character who can make different choices about where the plot line goes. And it depends on the choices that the character makes, how that plot line is developed. So you've got this individual character who comes along, and this individual character perhaps interacts with another individual character, And they each have a unique set of traits, and one of them is going to have a fatal flaw, or they're both going to have some kind of critical fatal flaw. And they're both going to have some strengths and weaknesses, just like people in real life. And then let's say that the choice that this woman makes, because she's got a history where she lost a child and a dog, she decides that she actually doesn't want to be with the man anymore, and suddenly she's sad, and she's alone. And as she's thinking about things, she becomes stronger. She joins a help group. She makes different choices. She meets different people. She develops friendships, and through that strength, she decides, oh hey, we can be friends again. And then along comes our ending, and the two are back together and living happily ever after. So as you can see, a literary plot actually can move differently than the arch that you're used to in the action-based plot, because it's based on the individual choices that the character or characters that you're focusing on create. When you're thinking about your literary plot or the plot for your short story, you want to make sure that you are driving it by character and by character choices, because it is the character that your reader is going to connect with. Your reader needs to feel a connection to them socially and psychologically, and if they don't feel that connection, then your plot is going nowhere. Now, if you look again at the action plot, even the best genre stories with all of this tension are still driven by good character. I want you to think about Harry Potter or Star Wars, some of the most famous stories that we've ever heard. The reason why they work so well is because that character of Harry Potter, the sadness of him, the orphan that he is, the choices that he makes, the situations that he is put in, we can believe them because they are psychologically sound. They fit with him as a person. And so even though those storylines are genre and they are propelled by action, Snape does this, Draco Malfoy does that, and Harry has no choice but to keep running, and then he ultimately makes the Polyjuice Potion. Because those actions propel him, we can see the choice he makes along this trajectory, and we recognize that that choice makes sense. A literary plot, which is something like the movie American Beauty, a literary plot is driven entirely by character choice, and there is not necessarily any action that precipitates that choice. It occurs kind of intrinsically or inside the mind. So think about these two different plot structures, and your assignment is to take an episode of popular television or a popular film or a popular book or even comic book, and I want you to do what I did here and plot the plot line. Show me what that plot looks like. Draw it out, and then mark it along the way. For instance, if we were doing Harry Potter, we would say at the beginning, Harry lives in a closet. And then there's the part where we're escalating and he gets invited to Hogwarts. So plot the plot line of one of these famous films or episodes. And your plot line may not look like this because your plot line may be more choice driven, and that's okay. I just want you to look at the plot of something popular and to share it. I'll have an assignment link in the course, but you can do just what I'm doing here. Take a photograph of it, draw it in black magic marker, and take a photograph and upload that, or you can do it on the web if you prefer to use graphic design software. I look forward to seeing what you produce.